Coming up this week, off screen,
Maggie Smith is The Lady in the Van.
Corin Hardy takes us to the Hallow.
Sean Baker peels a tangerine.
Russell Crowe and Amanda Seyfried lead fathers and daughters.
Death Row inmate Nick Yaris tells us about the fear of 13.
And Michael Fassbender is Steve Jobs.
All those to come and more off screen.
This is Off Screen. Off Screen. Off Screen. Off Screen. With the latest film news and reviews, this is Off Screen, the on-screen radio show.
Welcome to Off Screen, I'm Van Connor.
My name is Kase Allen.
So, where are we going to start this week then, Kase?
We're going to start at The Hallow.
Not the Hollow.
Not the Hollow, The Hallow. I got it right, Corin, I got it right.
You got it right. Okay, so this is the sort of feature debut, really, of Corin Hardy. As you say, he directed a few shorts.
A few shorts I like, yeah.
But this is the first big feature.
It is.
So this stars Joseph Mall and Serbian actress Bojana Novakovic. Got it. Getting better with that. As a young married couple who have... he is a sort of a botanist or a sort of tree surgeon of sorts. They've moved to a remote cottage with their young baby on the outskirts of a superstitiously guarded Irish forest, which the locals tell us, based on law, you're not meant to trespass into the forest, otherwise you will awaken the Hallow and it will come for you. And there's a bit of child that's gone missing in the village in years previous. It's been blamed on the Hallow, and everyone thinks it's some of them think it's mindless superstition. Some of them think no, you don't go in there. But wouldn't you know it, no sooner has Joseph Mall discovered a new form of parasitic fungus in the forest, bad things start to happen. Here's a clip.
Have I ever shown you a cordyceps?
Probably.
It's the Trojan horse of parasitic fungi. Go see this. This little beauty. Its spores can penetrate the skull of an ant to control its mind.
That's disgusting.
It's amazing. It gets inside the nest, jumps its spores over the entire colony, creating thousands of little fungus-controlled automatons.
Fine, Dr. Attenborough. Just don't go bringing any of those in here.
So Joseph Moore, Bojana Novakovic there, explaining said fungus to us. And
not enough funguses in films.
Well, I think because Super Mario Brothers kind of ran the gambit on the fungus in cinema, if we're honest. Once you've heard Dennis Hopper sort of fawning over fungus...
It killed Nintendo in films and funguses.
It did. We only pay attention to Nintendo. We never think of the poor unfortunate fungus. So this is quite a contemporary tale with sort of classic Irish fairy tale aspects in there. It has that dark... initially, when it's leading into sort of the plot aspect of the Hallow itself, it feels like the kind of thing Del Toro would have thrown out once upon a time. Irish Celtic fairy tales.
It sounds like one of the films that he would be a producer of.
Very much so. And you can actually kind of imagine that. Now, one of the things you need to say straight off the bat with this film is when you get to the end credits, there is a very sort of loving thank you on the end. This film is a thanks to Stan Winston, Rick Baker, and all the Harryhausen, all the effects wizards. Now, the reason I point that out is because that is the defining triumph of the film. It's all animatronics.
No way.
So much in the way of animatronics and puppetry, and the creature design is interesting, and it owes a debt to something like The Descent. The creature design in The Descent.
I quite enjoy The Descent.
This is kind of like that, but they're puppets.
Right. That.
And there is that quality, isn't there? Puppets can be slightly more disturbing than...
Again, that's quite a Del Toro-ism, I guess.
Very much so.
Very Del Toro-esque.
Although he's gone more CG in recent years.
Especially
in Crimson Peak.
Especially in Crimson Peak.
I loved his ghost design with the bleeding smoke.
Bleeding smoke.
Love that fact. So, Joseph Moore, Bojana Novakovic, very, very good as the sort of married leads. You really do invest in them. They succeed in selling you on the reality of the situation, and the reality of it is the part that you have to get on board with, because it takes an angle very, very early on and it sticks with it, which is there is a science behind all this. And then, of course, as the film begins to unravel, Joseph Moore's character is forced to sort of question. There is a great moment in which he says, "Did you? What was it?" And she goes, "Yes, I saw it. Okay, we don't need to discuss it. I saw it. It's just real. Yeah. It's just real. Let's just accept it." And you go, "Okay, cool, fine." But I really like that they go into the angle of the fungus and they go into the virus and parasites and things like that. And it's a really clever way around it. Narratively, it's not going to set the world on fire. There's nothing in here that you haven't seen before. And it does go A to B to C. And you will predict it. I could put this... I could ask you to write this based on a few plot points and you'd come up with the exact screenplay. Yeah. But Corin Hardy's design is what really makes it work. His visuals are terrific in tandem with his love of the effects, and he has a very visible love of this field. He's written the screenplay as well, which, as I say, it ticks all the right boxes. It does have that great sense of, we're all about science, screw it, this is real, this is happening. And I really admire it for that. Like I say, it's not going to set the world on fire, but it's a damn fine horror film, and it's a great sort of feature debut for Corin Hardy. I was a big fan. But, cool. And obviously, I think it would work for you as your...
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. Okay, I think we should talk about The Crow just a little bit.
Okay, let's do our film news on The Crow, then.
Okay, so do you think he's going to actually make this film, finally? Is it going to happen?
He's locked into a holding deal now.
He is in a holding deal,
since Relativity went down. He's locked in now into a holding deal. Yeah. He has to direct it.
And apparently they have a March shoot date. We're going to start in March.
Yeah, well, I'll believe it when I see it, but...
It's one of those films, isn't it?
It is. It's one of those films. I'll believe it when I see it. It's like Tron Ascension. I will just believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
So let's carry on with Fathers and Daughters then, which stars Amanda Seyfried and Russell Crowe, and it's directed by, I'm trying to remember his name, Gabriel Machino. Are you aware of Gabriel Machino?
What has Gabriel Machino done?
Gabriel Machino brought us The Pursuit of Happiness. And
that saccharine pilot.
Yes, that saccharine one, yeah. And, of course, £7, which you might remember better as the movie which contains suicide by jellyfish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's damn unique. You got to get that.
Yeah, you got to go with Suicide by Jellyfish. That is a unique one, yeah.
Does Will Smith pop up in this?
No, he does not. Although I think the film really would have benefited from a Will Smith-driven, parentally approved rap song at the end. Although I think most
Be
films...
good to your mum. Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, that takes us to the plot of Fathers and Daughters.
Nice segue.
Which begins with Russell Crowe, his wife, and their young daughter driving one night. Russell Crowe and his wife are having an accident. A car accident ensues, and the wife is killed. Russell Crowe, who I should point out for the purpose of this film, is intended to be a writer, a novelist. Yes. Decides he's going to carry on, he's going to raise his daughter, but he's struggling with physical after effects from the accident. He's got a neurological imbalance, which is causing him to have seizures and the like, and he may have a full psychological breakdown. And he elects to put himself into a care facility for a prolonged period of time to recover so he can look after his daughter properly. He leaves his daughter with his wife's sister and brother-in-law, who are Bruce Greenwood and Diane Kruger, respectively.
Definitely a safe pair of hands.
Definitely a safe pair of hands. Except, of course, as we established very, very early on, Diane Kruger likes a drink, and Bruce Greenwood is the world's sleaziest attorney, in a way that only Bruce Greenwood could be. Oh. Yes. So...
He's Admiral Pike.
Exactly. In the meanwhile, Russell Crowe comes out of his care facility 7 months later, only to find himself in the middle of a custody battle with his former sister-in-law and brother-in-law for custody of his young daughter. But that's not all. Because intercut with this, we have another timeline. This is all in 1988, we also have 2015, when said girl has grown up to become, Amanda Seyfried. And Amanda Seyfried, you see, she's a social worker, and she's emotionally detached, and she's struggling to form...
why?
Yeah, exactly, because of all those daddy issues, you see. She's struggling to form emotional connections of her own, and she starts dating Aaron Paul. Like, that'll help. And...
You've seen Breaking Bad.
I've seen Baking Bad or Breaking Bad?
That's yeah.
Either way, here's a clip.
Those seizures are the sign of something serious. You need treatment.
I can't do that. I have a daughter to raise.
And that's exactly why you need to.
You're gonna go and stay with Aunt Elizabeth and Uncle William. Back as soon as you can.
I love you, Katie.
Please drive.
You're sick, Jake.
Daddy?
You spent a year in the hospital. Your last book tanked.
We live in the United States of money.
I'm doing the best I can.
We'd like to adopt Katie.
Katie is my daughter.
So, like I say, once you've chosen to end a movie by suicide by jellyfish, your sensibilities are somewhat out of whack to begin with, and that's just about the only explanation I can find for anyone directing this piece of crap, and that's putting it politely. I'm going to quote the great Alan Frank, who I have his full blessing for this, to describe Fathers and Daughters as the sort of film that if you were shown it as an in-flight movie, you would go for a walk. And yeah, it has this turgid screenplay by a first-time writer, and boy does it show. Because I think this first-time writer...
First and last.
First and last, hopefully. Brad Desh, I think his name is. He seems to have based his repertoire entirely on Lifetime movies.
I'd say it sounds like one of those films that play on Channel 5 at like 3:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. So totally. Absolutely.
But with Russell Crowe.
With Russell Crowe. And Russell Crowe's doing this thing where he does a convincing seizure, and then he does some beautiful mind-style bouts of novel writing. Because, and Amanda Seyfried, he's pretty good, he's fine.
He's also
and Amanda Seyfried is fine as well. However, the film is not. The film is not fine. The film is not fine at all. Nothing about the film is fine. It is woefully... It's shot like a Lifetime movie. And it's that thing that Lifetime movies do, where whenever it gets really dramatic, it goes a bit shaky cam.
Oh,
you know that thing? Yeah. There's a moment in Chasing Amy, famously, in which Kevin Smith did it. And
I know the bit.
Yeah, you know the bit as well. And it's really manipulative and amateurish, and you just... Ugh. You know, it's got those moments in it. The dialogue is so bad. Russell Crowe at one point reading from his own novel is funny. That's the thing. The emotional beats of the story are laugh out loud funny. And I'm not saying that derogatorily. I mean actually laugh out loud. An audience. I sat there and watched this with an audience of critics who genuinely laughed out loud. And that's the kind of film it is. I love you more than anything in the world. yeah, okay, pal. And everyone's laughing. You know, it's so uninvolving. It's then got this really hilariously overblown melodramatic score.
Of course it does. Of course.
Hallow Buonvino, I think his name is.
What has he scored before?
I didn't even bother looking it up, to be honest. It's just so bad.
Probably scored a Lifetime movie.
Probably did. You kind of hope that Diane Krieger was given actual booze for her scenes, because I think she's earned it. And Bruce Greenwood is so better than this.
Yeah. He is in a lot of
crap.
Yeah, a lot of crap. Lack of a better word.
I mean, I think the worst... I think probably the best...
He's a great actor. He just...
The best thing I can say about this is that my mum would love it, but that's not really high praise. My mum eats up Nicholas Sparks adaptations like they're M&Ms. So
we've got another one coming next year.
We have, haven't we? The Choice, I believe. No, this is the least involving film from a director who brought you £7. So take from that what you will. Let's see. It isn't worth your ticket money at all. If it were a father, it would be the kind of father you never called. If it were a daughter, it would be a daughter you put up for adoption. And as a film, it's a film you shouldn't give the time of day to. End of. So, a bit of film news?
I think we need it after that.
We've earned it. We've earned one. Oh, Bong Joon-ho. Snowpiercer's...
Oh, yes.
Right. Okay, first of all, Snowpiercer is going to be a TV series.
Yeah, which is great.
I'm fine with that. I will take all the Snowpiercer in the world.
Yeah.
Happily do it. But have you heard about his monster movie?
I have.
How do you pronounce it? Is it Okja?
I've been saying Okja.
Okja. So this is going to be a monster movie.
With Tilda Swinton.
And Jake Gyllenhaal and Paul Dano. How awesome is this? This is going to be
I love all three of those actors.
I think this could be good. I think this could be... And it's from the director of Snowpiercer. And I don't think anyone could call Snowpiercer badly directed.
Is it going to get a UK theatrical release, though?
Well, if we're going with the Snowpiercer model, where it still hasn't...
Just put it on Netflix. Let Netflix have the rights to it.
It's on US Netflix. It is on US Netflix. So, because that was the only way I ever got to see it with the subtitles on.
I watched it on US Netflix.
Oh, did you love it?
I did love it.
I did love it as well. It's going to be film. It's probably going to be film of the year in whatever year it gets released. So every November I start looking. But alas, maybe next year will be the year. We never know. So should we cleanse our palate with the top 10 then, Kase?
Oh, yes, please. Let's do it.
Number 10.
The Last Witch Hunter.
Which I think if it's at number 10, I think we can safely say with some authority it's probably going to be gone next week.
Yeah, we won't be seeing him for a while. Not until...
Fast 8, I
Fast
think.
8 or Guardians. Or when does Triple X 3 come out?
Triple X 3,
that's
the
got
next,
a date,
next level.
The next level.
I don't know. I'm sure the next thing he's in is going to be Guardians, surely.
I think so.
No, it's Fast 8. Fast 8 is the next thing he's in. Yeah, Fast Thing's the next thing.
Oh.
Fast Thing is the next 8. Fast 8 is the next thing. No, so Last Witch Hunter, though, it's disposable Sci-Fi Channel sort of trash, but it's enjoyable trash, you know, and Michael Caine should know better, but you know what? He starred in Jaws the Revenge, so I think we've established
It bought him a new house, Jaws the Revenge.
Exactly. He will do anything for money, and who's going to begrudge him? He's Michael frickin' Caine.
Number 9.
Paranormal Inactivity, the Ghost Dimension in 3D.
It's almost out of the chart and out of our lives
forever until the reboot.
Until the reboot in, what year are we in now? In 2015? It's 2022 at best?
I would say even sooner than that.
I'd say even sooner than that. Yeah. The 3D actually works really well, but you know what? It is yet another disposable Paranormal Activity movie with next to no production value beyond the renting of a house, which I must say, if the original Hammer guys were still around, they would admire them for. But no, it's just nonsense. I mean, it's complete crap, but it is the most entertaining of the Paranormal Activity movies because they do get increasingly better. Just, you know, there hasn't been one above the level of poor so far. So, yeah.
Number 8.
Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. It's a brand new entry.
Well, let's see. It's a horror comedy that isn't particularly scary. It isn't particularly funny. And its female lead is a stripper. And this is, I mean, it does what it says on the tin, to be fair. I'll give it that. It does what it says on the tin. It's
got the most on-the-nose title, and I do appreciate that.
Fair enough. Yeah. You know, and I think, to be honest, if you're going to drop money to see The Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, rather than doing the smart thing, which is waiting about 25 minutes until it turns up on Netflix, then I think if you're the guy who will drop that money, you'll probably get what you've paid for. Which is, you know, there is some scouts. There are some scouts. There are some zombies.
It's a guide.
There's some boobs. Yeah. There's some boobs and there's some blood. What more do you need? And yeah, I can't really sell it much better.
I will tell you what you need. You need a copy of Cooties on DVD.
Exactly. That's exactly what you need. You need Cooties on DVD, which is a much, much better experience.
Number 7.
Suffragette.
That's going down slowly, though.
It is. I think it's definitely got some legs.
Well, I mean, I think, to be honest, it's going to float around until
award season. Yeah.
Award season, because we've got BAFTAs first, haven't we, after Christmas?
It's always BAFTAs first, so. I think it'll have more traction for BAFTAs, obviously, than it will anywhere else. Maybe Globes, but we'll see.
I think I'm surprised, actually. It's made less of a splash in the US than I would have expected, but these films kind of always do, and then they rear their heads again around
that time. Yeah. When all the screeners have popped up.
Have popped up. And I think Meryl Streep's cameo will see her net her award for the year, and Carey Mulligan may get Best Actress. I could see that happening.
Maybe get a nom. Yeah, I don't think she'll win.
I don't think she'll win, but I think she'll get a nomination for Best Actress. That's certainly possible. Maybe I think Meryl Streep for Best Supporting, even though
what about Anne-Marie Duff? Is she in it enough to warrant that kind of traction? Because I think she's a great actress.
Now, Anne-Marie Duff could very feasibly get Best Supporting Actress, but I do think she is terrific in it. But do you really think they would deny Meryl her annual?
Oh, of course not.
Her annual dress-up night. That's it. Do you think Meryl Streep just puts it in the calendar now as default? Like, I'm busy on that night, I have to go and get an Oscar.
Well, she's got people to do that for her.
Yeah, she does, yeah, we forget. So, but no, Suffragette, I did really like it, and I love the cinematography, and I love the style, I love the writing of it. And I like Brendan Gleeson in it quite a bit as well, who I don't think gets enough credit for the film.
Number 6.
He's still there, Mr. Mark Watney.
Mr. Mark Watney's still there.
Well, Sol 192.
Wouldn't it be funny if he stuck around for 4 years?
That'd be great. That would be the rub.
That would be, wouldn't it? So The Martian, which...
What is left to say about it?
What's left to say? I mean, I will say this about The Martian. I keep just talking to people, you know, just friends of mine, like daily life. I mean, you and I had the conversation this morning, Kase, in which people just like, The Martian was so good. It was so much fun. It was so enjoyable. And it is. It's so fun. It's so tense. It's so gripping. And it's likeable and charming. And you get Sean Bean saying, "You're a bloody coward." And I love that. That's my favourite bit of the whole film.
I mean, if anything, it gives people from Yorkshire like hope and aspiration they need to get a job at NASA, which is great.
Exactly.
That's what I need from a film.
Oh, so cinematic universe time, because you know we've got to have a new cinematic universe every week now.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So Call of Duty. That's our next one.
Is that going to be a new shared cinematic universe?
Our cinematic universe, yes.
And which studio is bringing us this?
Activision Blizzard are the studio. There is no studio.
Really?
Activision Blizzard are worth so much because of this video game franchise that they can genuinely fund their own movies and then just find a distributor after the fact.
Crazy.
Now, on one hand, that is kind of shocking. But on the other hand, that's actually brilliant because think about it. That means no studio interference whatsoever. The people who make the games will determine if the movie is good enough for them. Which you think actually
That's
that's
kinda good. I see that.
good. Because could you imagine if Sony weren't involved in the Resident Evil franchise, what those movies would be like?
Great.
So, I mean, Call of Duty, which is this...
I actually tried to imagine Sony not being involved in a lot of films.
They're due a win, a Sony.
Yeah.
But yes, a Call of Duty. We don't know which one we're going to get. Are we going to get the World War II chapters? Are we going to get Modern Warfare? Are we going to get the Black Ops series? Who knows? Because I think Black Ops 3 is currently out, isn't it?
That's the big release.
That's the big one at the minute. Yeah. But, okay, one more then. Judy Greer is going to be making her directorial debut.
Yeah, I heard about this.
A Happening of Monumental Proportions, it is entitled. And it will star our personal favourite, our shared favourite, Miss Alison Janney.
Oh, CJ.
CJ's going to be in there, but she's going to be starring alongside Common.
I love Common. Common's great.
I can't think of a way to jazz up the saying of Common.
I love that the goalkeeper for the United States World Cup football team looked exactly like Common. So every single time I was watching one of their games, I was like, "Look, it's Common."
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I've learned something. So, shall we go with the lady in the van then?
Yeah, Miss Maggie Smith. Dame Maggie Smith.
So this is based on the play and the novel by Alan Bennett. The screenplay for the film is also written by Alan Bennett.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And it stars Alex Jennings as Alan Bennett, and he does a brilliant Alan Bennett as well. So this is based on the story, the true story of a sort of unlikely tenant that Alan Bennett had for 15 years from the mid-70s to the late 80s. And she was Miss Mary Shepherd. She's played here by Maggie Smith. And basically, she was a homeless lady who lived in a van who needed she had no fixed abode. She had no fixed address. So he agreed to let her park the van on his driveway, in which she lived for a decade and a half. And over the years, of course, he became sort of an unlikely carer for her, a sort of begrudging friend, if you will. But she wasn't the easiest person in the world to get along with, as you'll hear in this clip.
You're not St. John, are you?
St. John who?
St. John, the disciple whom Jesus loved.
No, the name's Bennett.
Oh, well, if you're not St. John, I need a push for the van. It's conked out. The battery, possibly. I put some water in. It hasn't done the trick.
Well, was it distilled water?
It was holy water, so it doesn't matter if it's distilled or not. Of course, the oil is another possibility.
That's not holy too.
Holy oil? Well, in a van, it would be far too expensive. Now, I want pushing round the corner.
Now, that's the first meeting between the pair of them, and you can tell she's kind of a little bit manipulative. With I just need to go down the street. You go, push the van for me. Yeah. And, of course, being a good Samaritan, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, he obliges.
Exactly. So, Maggie Smith is sort of typically on fine form here. I mean, she's playing a curmudgeon. When does Maggie Smith not play a curmudgeon well? That's her bread and butter.
It is.
I'm pretty sure. The O2 bill's arrived. Get me a roll as a curmudgeon. I'm pretty sure that's how it works now. I've got the damehood. Tell them I'll do it for 50 quid.
Yeah.
50 quid in a sandwich. I'll be fine. As long as it covers the O2 bill for
That's be quite a fancy sandwich from like Pret or somewhere.
So you've got a great. Maggie Smith's actually played the role twice in the past as well.
Oh,
she
really?
did it for the radio, I believe, and on stage. And you can tell because she's so effortlessly comfortable in the role, and it is.
This is quite an easy thing for her to play.
It is. It's a perfect Maggie Smith role.
Great casting.
It's one of those things. If you ever asked, if an alien turned up on Earth and said, "Who's Maggie Smith?" and you had to show an alien Maggie Smith's work, you'd pretty much pick the first Exotic Marigold movie or this as kind of the perfect example of what Maggie Smith does.
And then the alien would be like, "Oh yeah, the old lady from Harry Potter. It's Professor McGonagall."
Professor McGonagall, yeah, because we have that on Neptune.
Those movies are big, man.
J.K. Rowling showed up and tried to flog us at books. Then said she'd do spin-offs.
Yeah.
And then you've got to say, Alex Jennings is a brilliant Alan Bennett performance. But what they've done quite cleverly is they've written in this mechanism whereby he has two distinct personalities, one of whom does the living and one of whom does the working, and they communicate. So we actually get to hear his thoughts via him talking to himself, literally in the same room. You've got a great supporting cast, which includes Jim Broadbent, Roger Allam.
Oh, Roger Allen,
Yeah,
really?
Roger
Yes,
Allen.
you know Roger Allen.
And I think
James Corden's in it. I believe.
very brief cameo,
briefly.
very brief.
Well,
cameo.
he's got a full-time gig now, hasn't he?
Oh, he has. He's got that talking gig. He does so well.
Talking
at.
gig, yeah.
So I say you've got great direction from Nicholas Heitner, I believe his name is. Who?
What has he done?
I didn't know actually. I've he's directed mostly, I think, plays and short films, but I think this is an early film work for him. But he's got quite a jaunty directorial style. He gets the sort of whimsy and fun of it all, and it is quintessentially British in terms of its humour and cynicism and likeability, and it's a very distinctly British film. It takes place on one street in Camden.
Yeah. More British can you get, really?
You've got this really lively score by George Fenton, which sort of peppers it up along the way, and again, it all adds to the jauntiness of it. Is the best way I can describe it. It never outstays its welcome. It's quite sort of tidily packed into about 100 minutes, and it is very enjoyable. You will laugh. You won't necessarily shed a tear, but you will be moved by certain moments in it. And that's it. Go with it, and you will enjoy it. Is very much what I would say.
With the latest film news and reviews, this is Offscreen.
So we're back. What are we going to start with now, Mr. Allen?
Let's start with a film shot on iPhones. It's called Tangerine.
Well, that's funnily enough, because this is how this film is going to be remembered, I believe. Is it going to be that one that was made on an iPhone
movie?
And it says at the end of the
that
film...
iMovie.
That iMovie. It actually says at the end of the film, it's all shot on iPhone 5S and edited using, I believe. Although I forget what that credit is. It's not iMovie, I don't think. Or is it the iMovie app?
Maybe.
So Tangerine, which is opens with the Duplass Brothers label.
Oh no, does it?
It does, and that reaction is exactly what I had. Oh, here we go, mumblecore time.
Well, no, because I love me some mumblecore, but I've just heard nothing but bad things about this film. And
Really?
I'm a big fan of J and Mark. I love me some mumblecore.
Things.
I've heard bad things about it.
I'm surprised because I didn't particularly like it, but everyone couldn't wait to fawn all over themselves for it. This is directed by Sean S. Baker, and you would expect standard mumblecore, given the Duplass Brothers Association. You kind of expect that. That's fair enough, because that's what they're known for, really. But they do go off the reservation sometimes, the Duplass Brothers. This is one of those more experimental vehicles. Sean Baker's ably driven this kind of thing. This is the story of two transgender prostitutes, Alexandra and Cindy. Literally Sin D.
D, the letter D.
Cindy.
Right.
And I think her actual name is Cinderella. I think actually is her name. And basically, at the time the film begins, Cindy has spent 28 days in jail. She has just been released. It's Christmas Eve, and she gets out around about lunchtime and immediately overhears a rumour, told a rumour, that her boyfriend / pimp, Chester, who's played by James Ransone from that horror sequel, is it? I want to say Insidious 2.
Let's say Insidious 2.
You're saying Insidious 2. She hears a rumour that he's been unfaithful, and she sets out to confront him, which basically means we are going on a trip through the ins and outs of West Hollywood on Christmas Eve as she tries to find her pimp. In the meanwhile, you also have another story, which is this Armenian cab driver named Razmik, who has a predilection for transgender sex workers. He's a supposedly happily married man, but is basically funneling all of his earnings into funding his good times with our characters. We have a clip.
I've been gone for 28 days, and you mean to tell me that he's been out here cheating on me with fish? Yeah. Do I know her? Oh no, I just know that her name starts with a D. It's something like Danielle, Desiree, Dee. I don't know, girl. Give me your phone. It was shut off. I had to cover your rent last month.
I'm trying to think how best to describe this film, and the closest term I can come up with is urban mumblecore. Is the best.
You're gonna coin that phrase.
I'm gonna coin that phrase. It's kind of like fluffy suspense. Urban mumblecore is what we're going for here, and that term kind of describes Tangerine perfectly. It's been called a transgender revenge comedy, and I think that denotes more of a comedic aspect than is actually present. It is a comedically tinged art house tale about a pair of transgender prostitutes. That's really the long and short of it. It is shot on an iPhone, so it's all shaky cam all the way through. It has that sort of handheld documentary style. It's because there's no lighting, it's sort of a bleached, LA daytime kind of a look. And I can't escape the idea that in 2015, in November 2015, given the leaps and bounds the media perception of the transgender community has made, this feels strangely regressive.
Really?
It's strange. Though the characters are exceptionally well written, it's the story feels strangely regressive. You can't help think, really? You've done this now? Really? After everything?
We're back here.
We're back here? This feels so 2013. That you can really. Now, let's say the strength of the film is the writing. Very much the case with the writing. The characters are brilliantly defined. They're very well developed. And the performances behind them fuel them terrifically. I have to read this name entirely. It is Kitana Kiki Rodriguez, who plays Cindy.
And that wins Name of the Week.
That wins Name of the Week. Congratulations, Kitana. I love that. It's a Mortal Kombat character, Kitana.
It is, yeah.
Kitana Kiki Rodriguez, who plays Cindy, really, really sort of raw and unflinching. And she's very much a character of all front. Very much character with it, and you could imagine, given the whole transgender aspect of it, the whole front is a very important part of it. And of course, over the course of the day, the front starts to get chiseled away just a little bit, piece at a time, as you start to see her soul bear through, as her world just becomes just a little bit more exposed. You then got Karen. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce this. His name is Karen Karagulian, who plays Razmik, and he plays Razmik really well as sort of put upon character, trying to do the right thing but can't resist his own inclinations. But his material is very, very thin when you stack it up alongside the girls' roles. And he does a good job with it. He has this very earnest, very frazzled performance that you kind of admire him for. But it's a film that it's not going to entertain you at all. It will interest you. You'll be interested in it, but you won't really be entertained. And that for me that defines mumblecore. To be honest, I've always had that with mumblecore. I'm interested, but I'm not entertained.
See, I generally am. It all hinges on the story, doesn't it? Importantly,
it does very much. I don't think there's enough story to this. It is.
No, it's as you have rightly said at the end of this piece, it's going to be known as the iPhone movie.
That's the iPhone movie.
That's what it will.
As I say, it has no multiplex heft whatsoever.
It's not that crowd.
It's not a popcorn movie. Let's put it that way. This is not going to get the popcorn crowds in, but it does thrive with interesting characters and its use of a very immersive sort of locale. I can't quite escape the notion, however, that the kind of person for whom the sort of West Hollywood transgender prostitution community is a daily sort of locale. If this is the sort of world that you experience, then odds are this isn't the kind of film you're going to enjoy anyway. And vice versa. I'm kind of struggling to figure out who this is for in a way. But like I say, it does feel very much like a film from 2013 and not a film from 2015. So should we do some film news before we proceed then?
Yeah, I think we should.
We'll do some film news and finish the top 10, I think. So let's go with Disney for a change. And this one intrigued me. We're going to get the live action adaptations. They're all the rage at the moment.
Really? I didn't know people were planning any.
Apparently there are more. I mean, I'm waiting for the Aladdin one because I want to know who the hell's going to play the genie in that one.
Well,
that's the next bit of news.
Yeah.
But in fact, should we start with that?
That's a good segue.
Let's start with that one.
Like we've planned it.
We've planned it. So Robin Williams, it turns out, had a stipulation in his will to prevent Disney from using any of his unused recorded material for the genie for any further Aladdin sequels. And apparently this is something Disney were actually considering. Disney were considering doing another Aladdin sequel using his unutilised recordings.
Because there were so many just on the cutting room floor that you could have done another fourth or fifth. Yeah, well, he did.
You'd imagine. Yeah. Robin Williams would have improv.
You just let him go for like a week.
You would, wouldn't you? Stick Robin Williams in a recording booth and just see what happens. I imagine that was
That was basically it when the animators had to work to that.
Well, this is why we have so many weird pop culture references in Aladdin. Why is there a Jack Nicholson reference in Aladdin?
Oh, I love that bit.
But evidently Robin Williams did see this coming. He put a stipulation in there. There is a 25-year lock on any use of his material for any further movies. So good for him, interesting one. Yeah, but this also leads us to Disney's next upcoming live-action adaptation, Esmeralda, a female-led retelling of The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Interesting.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame's the American college.
Notre Dame is the American college.
Notre Dame is the actual place.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Like, you get Marlon Wayans in there, I think that's what you call it.
You get like Tracy Morgan, you get
Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
It would work. I want Kevin Hart in a live-action fairy tale adaptation.
You get Sam Jackson to be Count Judge Frollo.
Kevin Hart as the genie in the live-action Aladdin.
No, thank you.
No, I would watch
Would you watch it?
I would watch that.
I would not.
Paint and Blue would work. Couldn't be any worse than Shaq.
I would rather paint in blue, but the blue paint be like proper hard industrial lead paint and then drop him off a cliff.
I'm sure you would. Are you not a Kevin Hart fan?
Not really.
Well, us short guys, we stick together, you see. So, should we finish off the top 10 then?
Let's do it.
Number 5.
Bradley Cooper in Burnt.
Which I didn't mind at all. I expected far worse.
I'm surprised.
I expected far worse.
Yeah.
I do think it's a really unchallenging, really by-the-numbers sort of kitchen-based dramedy. Cooper himself has done this for TV, which, before, as a series, Kitchen Confidential, and which is infinitely funnier and more likeable than this film is. But... do you know what? It's got some good performances in there. Daniel Bruhl's always likeable to see. Uma Thurman you won't recognise anymore. She turns up, you're like, who is that actress? Oh my God, that's Uma Thurman.
It's Mia Wallace.
It's Mia Wallace. But Bradley Cooper hasn't been this good in some time. I don't like Oscar nominee Bradley Cooper because I find him quite a dull...
I hope we never meet Oscar winner Bradley
Let's
Cooper.
hope not. I don't want to live in a world in which the star of The Hangover has won an Oscar. I really don't.
And Leonardo DiCaprio has nothing.
Exactly.
He's got a Golden Globe.
Number 4.
Should I say it or do you want to say it?
Nibsy!
It's pretty good, kid. It's pretty good.
Next week you can have Nibsy, okay?
Yes.
Next week.
I can play the Nibsy card.
Yeah, we take it week by week. Who gets the Nibsy card?
So, right, we just did The Martian for number 6, and we said, what else is there to say?
And what is there to say on this?
What else is there to say? But on like the opposite direction.
It's really bad.
It's really bad.
I mean...
Joe Wright is a much better filmmaker than this. This is his first big budget studio blockbuster, for lack of a better term.
It really is, and you can't help but wonder exactly what anybody involved was thinking. It changes the Peter Pan story into this sort of revisionist Chosen One origin story. Trademark. Which you just think, you know what, we've been down this road with Spider-Man, with Superman, we don't need... I mean, we stopped just short of having James Bond do this at this stage, where, James Bond was prophesied to be the chosen one who will bring about the end of Spectre. You kind of expect that in this day and age. We're like, really, Peter Pan as well? And it's a film with its internal logic is non-existent. Its external logic is just pathetic. Its performances are all over the shop. Everybody's playing to a different film. Hugh Jackman is starring in a different film to Rooney Mara, who's clearly starring in a different film to Garrett Hedlund. And then you have Levi Miller, who does a good enough turn as Pan himself, but he's adrift amongst all these bafflingly mismatched performances. And then you've got Jason Fox's script, and I really hate saying his name out loud. Jason Fox's script,
he does royally,
which he royally names, he royally self-names, and there's nothing more really. There's nothing positive you can say about them. The first 15 minutes, perhaps, are enjoyable. The sailing of the ship through the skies of London.
That's good.
But you can't help but think that the entire film has been crafted around this set piece, if you will. It's the...
You can put it in the trailer.
It is. It's the John Peters school of filmmaking. I need a giant spider in the third act. Yeah. That's exactly how this seems to have been created. And no, not good enough. Nil poir, nothing.
Number 3.
Brooklyn. Saoirse Ronan.
Did you have a chance to peruse this one?
No, sadly not. I've just been working every single day.
I was going to say, did you see anything this last week? But I liked Brooklyn.
Even I've been planning to.
I liked Brooklyn very much. It was a very charming, very endearing film. It solidifies for me Saoirse Ronan as the most underrated actress currently out there. I do think she deserves what we now have as the Jennifer Lawrence spot. But I liked it very much. I think the screenplay by Nick Hornby is terrific. And I think his cast work very well off of that. Emily Bett Rickards and Eva Birtwistle are slightly too comedic for the material. But that aside, very solid, very rousing, character-driven romantic drama.
Number 2.
And I've still not seen it. I think I'm just going to wait for
Which one?
Netflix to get it. Hotel Transylvania 2.
No, really?
I know. Every single Sunday we go to the cinema and just get distracted by something else. But yeah, I've heard fantastic things about it.
I liked it very much. I think it's about as good as the first one was. And the first one is a movie that I enjoyed when I watched it, but I never really gave much thought to after the fact.
You saw it and that was it.
You saw it, you enjoyed it, that was it. A good time was had by all. Went home and had Pop-Tarts. That's kind of it. Went home and had a Pop-Tart. Have a Coke and a smile. And then Hotel Transylvania 2 comes out, and you go, you see it, you enjoy it. A good time is had by all. You go home, have a Coke and a smile, and eat some Pop-Tarts. And that's it. And then we'll have Hotel Transylvania 3 in a few years, and we'll do the same thing all over again. But it is it's likeable and fun and charming in that way that the first one was. It's nothing more, nothing less. It is sort of quintessential, let's sort of poke fun at the Dracula myth, but we'll do it in a kid-friendly way. And let's poke fun at Frankenstein, we'll do that in a kid-friendly way. And the emphasis is on kid-friendly. And it is a sort of meet the parents, meet the Fockers style inversion of the formula.
Yeah.
But, you kind of expect that from an animated sequel. In the same way that, Shrek went to A, and then in the next movie, Shrek will, go from A to B.
Yeah.
It is exactly that. And you get what you get from it, what you put in. If what you're putting into it is, I'm just going to sit and, enjoy this the same way I enjoyed the first one, then congratulations, you will have the same experience. If you weren't won over by the first one, though, this ain't going to do the job this time around.
Number 1.
Spectre.
Spectre. Which I do think is really awkward at times in terms of it wants to be gritty and real, it wants to be a Roger Moore film, and it wants to have this almost Timothy Dalton-like performance at the centre as well. Yeah. And these elements don't go together.
Sometimes it's bloated, sometimes it's incredibly rushed. I don't know how we manage it. It's almost a bit, commendable.
For me, whenever anyone asks me about it, the thing I always come back to is I think the ultimate development of the B plot, which is Andrew Scott's storyline effectively, is cowardly and lacks any of the sharpness or bravery of what made Skyfall, which was the real world bureaucracy. That's what made that aspect of Skyfall for me. And they have the chance to do something similar but darker, in Spectre, and they take the coward's way out and without going.
But I don't think that's anything against Andrew Scott as an actor. I think he works with that.
Scott's fine.
He does the best he can with that material. I think.
But I think the material is the problem, and it's also a banefully wasteful film. I mean, it's the first Bond film that's cost over 200 million, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when you see the film,
way over.
Oh yeah, well, when you see the film though, you can see where they've spent this 200 million. But you sit and think, why have you done it though? The opening sequence in Mexico has what looks like 20,000 extras in a square, and you can't help but look at it and think, why have you gotten 20,000 extras when 500 will do? And that's pretty much a recurring thing in Spectre. You keep thinking, why have you used 3 shots? For what is...
You just need that one shot.
Why have we got 3 shots of Bond's car pulling into a car park? And that literally happens at one stage. We've got 3 shots of Bond's car going...
Because we want to see as much as the DB10 as possible. That's why.
We do, admittedly. But why? And this is the problem. The film is so overblown, so overcooked, so overrated. And you just think... No, because what made Skyfall was it was a stripped down,
it was lean, wasn't it?
Yeah, lean, that's the term. All right, it borrowed a certain section from The Dark Knight, but aside from that...
And from Home Alone.
And from Home Alone, yeah. But it was a lean, stripped down, functional film, and that's why Skyfall was as good as it was. Spectre is the complete opposite direction. This is very much having your cake, eating it, and then chucking up on the audience to boot. And... No, I mean, and this is before you get to that really weird, supposedly Lovecraftian yet strangely hentai opening sequence.
Oh yeah,
complete with nauseating theme song.
Although I never thought I would say this, but
is it growing on you?
It's not growing on me, but I do think that the visuals work with that song. I kind of enjoyed the song more with those visuals.
I'll give you that. Yes, the visuals do work with that song.
But it's still pretty turgid.
Out of place.
It's not Live and Let Die.
It ain't Live and Let Die. This ain't even Moonraker. So should we do another bit of film news before we proceed?
Yes, let's do it.
So, have you heard about the Gamergate movie? We're going to have a Gamergate movie coming.
Yeah, ScarJo.
ScarJo is circling it. Have you heard who's making it?
I haven't, actually.
It's going to be produced by Amy Pascal, former head of Sony.
Is she still allowed to produce films?
She's still allowed to. Not only is she still allowed to make films, she's booked up for about the next 4 years.
That's crazy.
She set up her own label called Pascal Pictures when she left Sony. And
has she got an email account? Is she allowed to use email anymore?
You would imagine she only communicates through WhatsApp at this stage.
Through smoke signals.
Pigeons.
No one can hack a pigeon. Fine.
No one can hack a pigeon. That's done. But yes, so Zoe Quinn's book about the scandal the rights have been purchased by Pascal Pictures, who are going to be producing into a feature-length film with apparently Scarlett Johansson interested. So we'll see what happens with that one. Meanwhile, James Foley, who's the director of 50 Shades Darker, which is the upcoming second instalment of 50 Shades of Grey or trilogy, well, it's been revealed that he will in fact be shooting both sequels back to back, which might be for the best because I think that bubble's kind of burst now, and it's a case of let's just get them done.
Get them out of the contract.
Let's get them done before anyone forgets what 50 Shades of Grey is, because what was it, 2011, 50 Shades of Grey? When it was popular? That. I know the books are years older.
I don't really follow it.
No.
I just let it pass over me and watch better films.
I tried reading it and then just gave up. I call it Dan Brown syndrome. I just gave up because I'm like, this is awfully written. I will not read it to the end.
I will wait until Ron Howard makes it into a lackluster film.
Yes, and I would love to see Ron Howard's 50 Shades of Grey.
I'd love to see that.
I would really love to see
get Chris Hemsworth in it.
No, don't, because in my house that would go down really, really well.
Yeah.
Time for the biggie then, Kase. You've been waiting a month for this.
Oh, so long. Yeah.
So, Aaron Sorkin written, Danny Boyle directed, Michael Fassbender starring, Steve Jobs is upon us. And this is based on allegedly based on the book Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, which was pretty much the must-have on every coffee table about 3 years ago.
Did you have it on your coffee table?
No, I had it on my iPad.
That's very appropriate.
So, following the death of Steve Jobs, I think everyone had this book, because the book came out about 3 months after Steve Jobs. It was written with Steve Jobs. He collaborated, obviously, with it, and he was given sort of material that had never been sort of made available before. And so, it's quite an interesting and compelling read. I read it, fittingly enough, on an iPad in the gym over the course of about a week. But we now have the film based on this, but rather than a straight biopic, what they've done, to quote everyone's favourite Steve Jobs marketing slogan, is think different. Even though grammatically that makes no sense to speak of. Something that actually does get brought up in the film, incidentally. So what we have instead is Aaron Sorkin's screenplay, which takes its 3 acts and sets them each before a different Apple keynote. The first one is the unveiling of the Macintosh in 1984. The second is the unveiling of the next computer in 1988, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
1988. And the next is the unveiling of the iMac is that 98 or 99? I can never remember.
98, I think.
But his return to Apple either way. Fassbender plays Jobs, and before each act, as he puts it himself, it's like everyone goes to a bar, gets drunk, and then vents their feelings at me 5 minutes before I go on stage. And that is literally what happens. Here's a clip.
We got 45 seconds. I want to use it to ask you a question. Why do people who were adopted feel like they were rejected instead of selected?
I don't feel rejected.
You're sure?
Very sure.
Because it's not like the baby is born and the parents look and say, nah, we're not interested in this one. On the other hand, someone did choose you.
It's having no control. You find out you were out of the loop when the most crucial events in your life were set in motion. As long as you have control. I don't understand people who give it up.
So, Kase, you want to take a minute and hit this one?
I loved this film.
As did I. I really did.
So, I mean, I am a little bit biased because I'm a huge fan of Aaron Sorkin.
Well, who isn't, though? I mean, Aaron Sorkin's a terrific writer.
I think it was only Studio 60, but I haven't watched.
You haven't watched?
Not fully, anyway.
I love Studio 60. Big fan of Matthew Perry and Bradley Whitfield.
And it's only 1 season, so I should really just do it.
Exactly. And it's basically 2 storylines.
Yeah. But when it was announced, obviously it was going to be a different studio. Mm-hmm. It was going to be with Sony. It was going to be with David Fincher. David Fincher was circling Christian Bale and Leo as well. I was all on board for that.
Now, I was as well. And that's the film I really want. And I think we would have wound up with an absolutely outstanding film from that. What we have is a great film. What we could have had was an outstanding film. I do think we could have had better than we got.
Okay.
But I think we got pretty damn good. And so I don't want to undersell it for that reason.
I think in terms of looking like Steve Jobs, I think also Christian Bale he would have got that down. But that is not the film they're going for. They're not going.
They're
for
not going for
lookalikes.
that. No, not at all.
No, which I really admire. And you go watch it, and yes, it is an Aaron Sorkin film. It is a Michael Fassbender film. It is definitely a Danny Boyle film.
Very much so. I do think, though, Danny Boyle feels very detached here. I think because you've got that big Michael Fassbender performance. I think it's a big performance because obviously Jobs is a big character.
He's a big character.
Larger than life.
I bet he had a lot of fun doing this.
You would imagine he had to have. But you've got this big Fassbender performance, and you've got Aaron Sorkin's script, which really owns the film. The film is the script.
Yeah.
And there's so much dialogue. I mean, you would love to see footage of rehearsals or outtakes from this because it's so dialogue driven and it's all monologues and it's all rapid fire back and forth.
Yeah.
It's vintage Aaron Sorkin.
It's everything you want.
I counted, I think, at one page, it's 6 minutes before we get a walk and talk. In this. If you know your Aaron Sorkin terminology, we get a walk and talk in 6 minutes because the film, frankly, needs them. You've got, I say, Danny Boyle feels detached, I think, because of the weight of the Aaron Sorkin script and that big Michael Fassbender performance. So Danny Boyle seems to have taken a little bit of a step back. It's not quite as in your face.
You still see some of his trademarks. You see those kind of like classic Danny Boyle camera angles, and
I think he's more. He takes more of a sort of cue from, funnily enough, Apple themselves in terms of how they visually market things. Danny Boyle seems to have taken his influence from that, which is take a step back and simply admire the beauty of what we are showing you. Yeah. And he does that very, very well. I mean, he's great, even if he is, even if he's only sort of functional, I would say. But his functional is better than a lot of other directors', full modes. You've then got a really interesting score as well. Daniel Pemberton's given this great score in which he seems to have calibrated his score specifically to the mindset of the Steve Jobs character. So when he's stressed, the score is stressed. And
it's much more frantic.
It is, and it's really frenetic, and it's hurried, and it's and you think, yes, this is what this needs, and it really, really enhances the atmosphere of the film. Let's say Sorkin on absolute fire. One thing I do have to give him absolute credit for is he's managed to work an element of humour into this script, a sort of nerd humour. There is a joke in the first 10 minutes of the film. I'm not sure if you had this experience when you saw it, when you were just laughing for the first 10 minutes at things like, what do you mean you can't get in the casing? What that doesn't make what? It's a machine. How do you not get inside it? And you start thinking anyone who's ever owned a Spudger will understand this humour because it's the kind of thing that's still funny now in the iPhone era. And it was funny then as well.
There are some excellent funny comedic beats. I think a lot of it comes from my man Mr. Michael Stuhlbarg.
Oh, that's another thing as well.
He's great.
Michael Stuhlbarg he's clearly on a real ascent now, and look at his performance in this.
It's about time.
And he's very chameleonic as well. You don't know it's the same guy.
Yeah, he's very much the fifth lead in this film.
Very much so. But we should talk about Kate Winslet as well, who I think...
And Seth Rogen, of course.
And Seth Rogen.
And Jeff Daniels.
Seth Rogen has less of a role than you would expect, given the character he's playing, but he does sell the relationship very convincingly.
And I think that's what it needs. But
doesn't.
There's two very kind of key exchanges between the two characters. One where it's kind of like middle and it seems like it's bubbling, and then one where it just goes.
Yes.
It's like a volcano, and I love that scene.
When that relationship finally erupts, you're like, yes, get it out your system,
come
guys.
On,
come
Woz.
on.
Yeah, go for blood.
Go on, Woz, hit him. You want to go, come on, Woz, man up, just hit him.
The Woz, what a great nickname that is.
I know. Hey, do you know what? He's still an entertaining personality today.
I saw him on. It was on Fallon or something like that.
Was he?
Yeah, it was great.
I love it. Every time a new Apple product gets launched, I search the internet for Steve Wozniak's thoughts. I love it.
Yeah.
His thoughts on Siri to me were hilarious, which was why have they made this? Which I don't understand why they've made it. It makes no sense. Anyway, so putting aside my own Apple nerdness, the film is terrific. Its beauty lies in the elegance with which it's been crafted, and there's something of a fitting, something fitting about how elegantly the film has been crafted, given it's about the creator of Apple. You think, well, if you're going to make a film about the man who basically pioneered technological elegance, then yes, your film should be this elegant, and that's brilliant. That's a wonderful aspect to it. It's irresistibly engaging. It is insatiably engrossing. It's a film that would work as well as a stage play as it does as a film. Yet,
which is another Sorkinism.
Sorkinism. And yet, Boyle's sort of functional way of filming it is such that you think, actually, yeah, but I kind of prefer the movie idea to doing this as a stage play. There's certain liberties taken with the story if you know the legend of Steve Jobs, which incidentally is something the film is very, very specific about handling. The film doesn't want us to regard Steve Jobs as a legend. It wants us to, consider him as a man. He is just a human being, and the film is very specific about that. You are watching the story of Steve Jobs the man. Steve Jobs the legend is who he is when he's off screen. That's when he gets on the stage.
That's when you see
behind the stage. He is
you see his character.
He is just the man. And hence all the references to, okay, you have to tell us how you created the Earth and things like that. And I like that about it. There are liberties with the story. You never met John Scully after the boardroom, but and he meets him twice in the film afterwards.
Yeah, it is.
But you see, think, okay, I can go with that because what you've done is crafted a compelling narrative out of it, and you've given it some emotional payoff, and that works. And you it's the kind of scene that you know for a fact Steve Jobs would have wished he'd had in reality. You would have wished he had those moments. And the film plays them very, very well. It is a genuine triumph for Aaron Sorkin. If ever a film will successfully sell Aaron Sorkin as the screenwriter to go to, I think this is it. So some more film news then to take us to the bridge. Let's see what we got. Oh, Johnny Depp. We got to talk about Johnny Depp.
Yeah, he is voicing a character, isn't he?
He is voicing a character.
And who is this particular character?
Johnny Depp, of course, will be voicing Sherlock Gnomes in the sequel to Romeo and Juliet.
How are they going to blend Sherlock Holmes and Shakespeare?
Have you not heard the plot synopsis?
I have not. No.
Right, Romeo and Juliet are in London. Just as a series of gnome disappearances begins to take place, and they turn to Sherlock Gnomes to solve the case. Go for it, I say. It's bonkers or why not?
It did pretty well, I remember, that first film.
It did. I've never actually seen it, although I know Elton John is still producing the sequel as well.
I was working at the cinema when it was released, and I just remember getting a bunch of Elton John songs stuck in my head for 3 months.
You mean you don't normally have Elton John songs stuck in your head? I have Rocketman.
Occasionally. Rocketman's classic, though.
So, Annie Hall. Woody Allen's Annie Hall has been voted by the Writers Guild of America to be the funniest screenplay ever written. Which, for me, just says that there is an entire room full of judges who've never, ever seen Hot Tub Time Machine. Which, and if they'd seen Hot Tub Time Machine 2, I would be shocked.
Yeah. I would probably have it... I wouldn't have it anywhere near my top 10. I'd probably have it in my top 20.
It's an iconic comedy, but sure,
it is
something
iconic.
Like The Odd Couple.
I'd put Airplane.
Airplane, something like Airplane. Yeah. I would make a case for The Naked Gun. I'm just saying, I would make a case for First Naked Gun. That for me.
Put that in the 10, I would say.
Let's think. I don't know. There's.
You've got to think about lines that you can recite back, and there's only 1 or 2 from Annie Hall, but I could just think, and then I think of Airplane.
Can I be a Philistine and say Wayne's World?
You could say Wayne's World.
Because that is one
that's got iconic lines.
Surely that's one of the most quoted films ever, isn't it?
Yeah. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
It is such a quoted film. But I say this, I watched Brian May on an episode of Loose Women the other day, which he talked. I know, and he talked about Wayne's World, which I thought was...
That is the strangest segue you'll ever hear on this show.
Yeah, it is. I watched Loose Women, or that I watched Brian May on.
Both.
I was looking.
The fact that Loose Women is even on the show.
My mother-in-law's just had surgery. I was looking after her at the time.
It all makes sense.
Right. So one final piece then. Brian De Palma has signed on to helm an interesting action thriller. It's called Lights Out, and it's going to be co-produced by the Chinese, an outlet called Hoyce Pictures, and it's going to be about a blind Chinese girl who stumbles upon an assassination program, a secret assassination program, and has to become a hero to expose the truth and save the day.
Of course she does.
Apparently they're looking for an A-list Chinese female star to play the lead. So
get the broad from X-Men.
The broad from X-Men.
What's the name? Fan Bingbing?
Fan Bingbing, and then there's Bing Bing Lee, isn't there as well?
Bing Bing Lee, yeah.
There's Bing Bing Lee and Fan Bingbing.
Yeah.
I think Fan Bingbing needs more to her name. I think because at least Bing Bing Lee has the Resident Evil franchise.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So Fan Bingbing isn't. I don't think going to be back in X-Men anytime soon. So
she'll be back in Apocalypse. Huh?
No. So final review of the week then. Shall we look at the Fear of 13?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, this is a really interesting one. This opens with a title card which says, Death Row inmate Nick Yaris one day decided to phone the judges overseeing his various cases and asked them to terminate all of his appeals with immediate effect and then demanded his immediate right to be executed. He was then interviewed, and this is his story, and that all facts as he has given them have now been independently verified for us as an audience so that we can be assured that what we are being told is the truth. What we are then given is, I think it's about 96 minutes of literally Nick Yaris on camera. Just Nick Yaris, just him in a room on camera, and a couple of sort of segue shots, mood-setting shots, interior of a jail and things like that. It looked like they've got the Ken Burns effect on a photo kind of a thing. So, the story is what led Nick Yaris to be incarcerated, how his life was on the inside, his attempts to overturn his conviction, and, well, the aftermath, really. Here's a clip.
I've been an escaped prisoner for 25 days. I was on the binge. And the next thing I know, there's a cop right there. And then you heard pop. I've been arrested enough to know this one's bad. I was thrown into this world. No sunlight. And it's deadly silent.
So this is, regardless of anything else, this is a very fascinating and very compelling story. Now, I say regardless of anything else, what it does have is the one ace up the sleeve of any documentary maker ever, which is the subject of this film, Nick Yaris, might be the greatest orator you have ever encountered. I don't know, to say he can spin a yarn, my God, really. The wool companies are phoning this guy up. He can spin a yarn with the best of them. Right. He is a natural-born storyteller. He's also something of a strangely magnetic screen presence. His telling of the story is very insightful, very detailed. His way of describing things, although it can feel a little bit rehearsed at times, which is understandable given that this man has spent so long inside. You'd imagine he's rehearsed the story 1,000 times in his head, and that kind of shows because his level of off-the-cuff detail is very specific.
Yeah, very detailed.
Very detailed, to the extent that you're thinking no one has ever
You've been writing this.
You've been writing this down, with a biro on a toilet roll.
Yeah.
to reference V for Vendetta there. Was it pencil on a toilet roll? Pencil. So this is by David Sington. I'm not familiar with the rest of his documentary work, but what he's done here is he's set the stage brilliantly. He has allowed Nick Yaris's own verbal story to drive the film, and he has merely supplanted visuals. He's merely just added the visuals, and what he's done is he's added some really effective imagery to it. There's one piece of imagery to this which gets its own payoff towards the end of the film. It gets an iconic, full-on arc of sorts towards the end of the film. But what's really interesting about it is that it's not so much just Nick Yaris's story as it's this really insightful sort of examination of life on the inside, life in prison. He tells a story about when drugs were found in the rehearsal room of the prison glee club, and that glee club were put into solitary confinement with Nick Yaris. Nick Yaris incidentally spent 24 years in solitary confinement on death row, where you had to be silent all the time. God. Maybe that's why his storytelling is so good.
Something to keep you sane.
That's how, yeah. And he tells this beautiful story about two men who were lovers in the glee club, and they found out they were going to be split up. They were going to be sent to different prisons, and how they sort of sang their goodbye. It's a really moving moment, and the film is full of these just great sort of moments which you don't get to see. You get some imagery, but they're not of the story. They are really, really well done. As I say, Sington seems to understand that Yaris's rehearsalism might be a bit of an issue, and hence the visual style. It removes that sort of the problem you might have with the rehearsed aspect of it. But like I say, that's understandable under the circumstances. It doesn't waste a single moment, though, because you say it's about 96 minutes, I think, thereabouts. It doesn't waste a moment of its runtime. Its story, you would think that surely there isn't that much to it, but once it gets into the internal sides of, for instance, his appeals, which that's a whole horror story in and of itself. I mean, this guy should have a genuine top-shelf drama produced about him, because it's a very, very interesting story. Once it gets into that, you think, wow, this is a water cooler documentary. This is the kind of thing that for many years, I think for a good few years, we're going to have Monday morning round the water cooler. Hey, I saw this great documentary on BBC 4 last night. And I think it is. It deserves its place as one of those. I think definitely. He's probably the most profound documentary subject this year, I would say.
Really?
I would say definitely
above Malala.
Above Malala. Well, that's the thing, because with Malala there is so much. There are problems with Malala. In terms of her own film, there are problems. Those problems are not present in The Fear of 13, a title which, by the way, refers to he would rehearse words. That's how he would pass the time. He would just look up words. And one of them is the word for tripodixia or something, whatever the fear of the number 13 is.
Okay.
And that's
he can pronounce it perfectly.
Yeah, he can pronounce it perfectly. I obviously cannot. So, I'd say Yaris himself is engaging, he's enthralling, and he's charming. But he's as much as he is all those things, that's how dangerous we're told he was. But you make your mind up on that front for yourself when you see the film, and I cannot recommend highly enough that you do actually see the film. But put it this way, it's between that and Steve Jobs for me for Film of the Week.
Okay,
I think Steve Jobs. I'm going to give it to Steve Jobs.
I'm going to give it to Steve Jobs.
Well, lack of options.
Exactly, yeah, by default. But if it was up against other films, I would give it to Steve Jobs anyway.
Well, speaking of up against other films, everything's up against one film next week. Everything's up against Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2.
I thought you were going to shock me with something else, man.
Well, we also have the documentary Steve McQueen, The Man and Le Man, next week. That one could be interesting. We have Gaspar Noé's Love 3D. Which, we could see what comes of this one. Kate Winslet's back in The Dressmaker. Michael Ealy is the perfect guy, apparently. And Mr. Calzaghe, which I confess I know nothing about.
Just about Joe Calzaghe, I guess.
I would imagine so. So, this has been a Candy Store production for On Screen. I've been Van Connor.
My name is still Kase Allen.
And we'll be back next week.
Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
You've been listening to Offscreen. For more news and reviews, visit onscreenfilm.com.